All right, we should be on air. Yeah, we're live. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Juju Charmers update. This is a somewhat regular meeting of the Juju Charmers group, or as many as we can get, depending on time zones. I'm joined with a lot of Charmers, most of which you're probably familiar with from the mailing list and reviews and such. We like to go over just general topics of what we as Charmers have notified, any policy changes, any discussions about things that are of concern to the charming community. Um, and then if there are any questions, we'll take questions. Although I'd like to also remind anyone who's watching, there is also a Juju office hours later today in about 5 hours time from now. So if you're able to make that, that would be great as well. We'll be doing an open forum for questions around Juju in general. Um, so we'll go ahead and start, I suppose, with the agenda. Let me find this.
Yeah, Marco, I think first and foremost is we're going to welcome two new Charmers. We've got Adam Israel and Edward Hope Morley joining the Charmers ranks. That was the top of the agenda, I think, or the most important point. I think the regular agenda can be skipped for this. So I wanted to welcome those guys, and we have to give them the initiation, as it were, and I think that's
Right, I agree. And they're both here on the call, so welcome, guys, to the Charmers team. You both had outstanding applications and glorious reviews. In the upcoming week, we'll be scheduling a time to go over the processes and how promulgation and other things work for charm reviews and such, and so we'll go over that. Nothing too terribly secret. It's mostly boring administrative stuff. There are a couple extra commands you have access to now, and that about sums up what you get as Charmership, other than the glorious title of Juju Charmer, or just Charmer in general, which is a fantastic badge to have. Cool. So, welcome. I guess that's first order of business. Let's move on. So the discussion ideas were the review queue, which has always been an interesting point of discussion. I know last Charmer meeting we had some proposed changes to the review queue to make it a little more streamlined. We've taken that one step further. Myself, Adam Israel, and likely Tim Van Steenberg, another Charmer as well, who was unable to join us today, will be going through and rewriting the majority of the software. It served its purpose for its original implementation. It was a pretty good proof of concept of how we could do a better review queue, but it has since become quite outdated even these last several months in being able to encompass the real growth and pace at which the Charm Store is growing. So we have some plans to rewrite it. We're going to be writing a spec and sharing it with the public to get feedback on maybe other things that we're missing or things that we may not have thought through for this rewrite. Or rather this update. It may not be a rewrite, it may just be a lot of fixes to it. But we have gathered quite a lot of list of grievances and concerns and features that people have requested. We'll be trying to implement the ones that streamline the process as much as possible. We want to make sure that the review queue is something that is fun. Well, not fun. I mean, as fun as possible as is to have your code reviewed, but to make it as a much more streamlined experience from someone submitting a charm to getting reviews out as soon as possible, getting feedback to people as soon as possible so that they can continue to make changes without having to wait a long time period in between, and to make it easier for reviewers to know what's the next item for review, what they should be focusing on, and where they can best apply their efforts when they're actually taking time out of their day to perform reviews. Are there anything else that people want to bring up about their review queue? I know it's quite a bit. We could probably spend the whole conversation today talking about it, but we also want to see if we can start pushing to include reviews not just within the Charmer space, but of all charms. So for teams who are managing their own charms, people like the OpenStack Charmers, the Online Services Charmers, the Juju GUI Charmers, to expose a bit of their review process as well into the review queue, so that there's a centralized location for everyone to engage around reviews. Cool. I guess no one has any objections to that. I'm sure no one really objects to improving the review queue in general, but that is that.
Okay, I do have something to interject that's probably relevant to this conversation. So in the OpenStack Charmers team, we've been considering the prospect of actually putting our charms upstream under the OpenStack umbrella. The OpenStack project have just announced a thing called Big Tent, which is a very encompassing policy as to what can be considered part of the OpenStack ecosystem. So I'm currently working on a plan to migrate our charms over to Git, and then to include them under the OpenStack namespace upstream on OpenStack. I need to send the email to the development list upstream and start the kind of policy process going to get that enabled. But that would mean that our charm reviews would then move over to be Git Gerrit based in line with the rest of OpenStack. And the real benefit for us there is kind of lining up with everything else that OpenStack developers are doing right now, which is very much based around that workflow. So it's probably just be something to be aware of for the time being. We're just kind of exploring how that's going to work right now, and we've got a whole load of CI we need to rewire to make that work effectively. But that's something that we're looking at the moment.
No, that's fantastic, and there's no contention from us at all. If you guys wish to put your charms in a different review process, I know a lot of the guys working on the new workloads team as well. Some of their actual bits around Docker and Kubernetes actually live with the upstream project as well, and their reviews are done on the cycle there. That's all the better if the community wishes to accept that as the place to do reviews. It makes sense for an engagement, especially OpenStack is such a very large user base with a already proven review process that we're actually looking to mimic some of those bits for just charm reviews in general that don't have that pre-established community. But yeah, that's no problem at all. Thanks for the heads up, and let us know how it goes. I'll be excited to see how that whole process shakes out.
Sure, will do.
Say, Marco, not that there ever is any problems with the review queue, but if there is a problem with the review queue, where do I go to create a bug or an issue?
That's a great question. The review queue is open source software. It is hosted at GitHub currently, but with the recent addition to Launchpad for native Git support, we may be moving the code base there. But for the time being, bugs can be filed, and I'll put this in the channel. But I believe it's github.com/juju-solutions/review-q here. I'll put this in every channel that someone could be watching right now. So that's where you would file bugs. You find bugs. If you wish to patch things, it is essentially a pyramid app that was written a little while ago, but it should be relatively straightforward. Python is as best as someone else could read my chicken scratch. So please let us know if you have any problems with the review queue in general. That doesn't seem like a bug. You can always ping myself on IRC and pound Juju, just Marco Ceppi, and we'll be working on getting a better system in place and in a more stable infrastructure. Cool. So any other information, anything else on testing anyone wants to interject with? All right. I guess we'll move on to the next topic. Seems to be the state of charms and bundles. Not sure this topic is. Matt, are you familiar with this one? The state of charms and bundles?
Well, bundles are getting a rewrite. The Juju GUI team just released a newer version of the GUI that does bundles a little bit differently, and I just wanted to keep that on our radar, and if we need to change any of the bundles or if we need to rewrite them, we should keep that in mind. I think we're gonna, they're rewriting the way that the schema is, so we should just keep that in mind, or make sure that if there's any problems with bundles, that we're aware of that and we can fix them as needed. But I don't know of any right now that are broken, but some of the Kubernetes bundles that we were using in the new workloads team, they weren't working with the latest GUI and the latest deployer, and so we were trying to figure out why and fix that. So.
Interesting. From what I understand,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying, from what I understand, the bundles that exist in the store already should be automatically forward ported to this. They're calling like a 1.5 release of the bundle spec. It's a little bit of streamlining. There's some slightly different structure. There's no longer a top level key. Bundles don't live in the same directory. It's one bundle of file essentially. It's just a list of services and relations and some other additional fixes inside the series format. But I believe they have a way to forward port. In fact, if you're ever viewing a bundle in the store in the jujucharms.com browser, you should see a bundles.original.yaml and a bundles.yaml. So they're keeping the original format if it's an older one, and then they're also creating a newer version of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so there's things like num units and such, which got some clarification on. But this should be all working, but they are leading to a newer bundle format, Bundle 2.0, which is a more encompassing view of how to model everything inside of a Juju infrastructure as a single YAML file. So that's something to look forward to for sure. Cool. Any other questions on that or concerns around the new bundle format? It is something to make aware of. I know also when it comes to doing reviews in the near future, this kind of bleeds into another topic, the next one actually. 124 was just released, which means we now have features that if are present in a charm will break older releases. And this is any charm that's using status set or the leader election stuff, which means that if a charmer hasn't taken if a charm author hasn't taken the right active presence to do proper trial and error catching for these things, invoking status set on 123 or below will cause Juju to choke with a hook error. I know the core team is trying to address this by having a way to declare what features or versions Juju operates with. We've noticed this as a problem as well, so for those of us working on the CI infrastructure, we're going to try to set up so that we're not only just running the latest version of Juju, but every supported release of Juju to kind of build an idea of what versions a charm does actually work with, so we can catch these kind of differences and maybe even have that supplied to the store for decision making. But when doing reviews, if you see people using these newer command sets, make sure to encourage them to do proper escaping of things. If they're using Python, try catch blocks is a good way. I think if they're using Python and using Python charm helpers, there are proper mechanisms in the charm helpers for Python to catch that. So if you invoke status set, it should just Juju log instead, or
it falls back to logging. Yeah. Perfect.
I have an example in the rally charm I wrote. I used status set as well. For Bash versions, I just did status set or pipe to Juju log. It's a little dirtier. It's not nearly as nice and clean as the charm helpers version, but that's my attempt at doing catch blocks without having to rewrite the charm in the Python.
I still want to say, yeehaw!
Yeah, it's not as pretty. It does work, but I like to be rewrite it to Python anyway. So it's nice to see that charm helpers already has support for that, which is great. So if you're using Python and charm helpers, and I'll talk to the cloud-based guys. They're not on this call, of course. They're not charmers yet, but they're maintaining the PowerShell charm helpers. I'll make sure that they have the same kind of mechanism set up where it'll catch those things for status set 124 and just fall back to Juju log as well. So those who are using the PowerShell charm helpers for Windows charms will have the same kind of effect. Cool. But those are the major changes I think I know coming to bundles and charms that are something to be aware of when doing reviews. Encourage those who are writing charms in Python to use the Python charm helpers versions. Those writing in other languages, make sure they just have proper ways to catch that kind of stuff. That way we don't give a broken experience to users who are using 122, 123, and 1.21, I guess is also the last supported release of the Juju. Hopefully soon this won't be a problem as we deprecate those and move forward. That also leads into the automated testing stuff. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We are going to spend some time this cycle, not quite sure when, beefing up just our general availability of CI. We'll be adding new substrates as well as testing different architectures, as well as testing different versions of Juju. So any release of Juju that's stable, that we're doing stable updates to. So I think it's 122, 123, now 124, as well as the latest Devel release. So whatever it's in the Devel PPA beta alpha version. We'll be testing with those versions of Juju for charms, so we'll have an idea of which ones are working, which ones aren't, as well as architecture. So we'll be we have a Power 8 machine, so we'll be able to test charms with Power 8s. We'll be adding restricted networking testing, so we can see charms that don't quite work with a restrictive, more enterprise-like infrastructure, and then we're looking to see if we can add ARM hardware as well to this so that we can test charms on ARM and catch architecture support in addition to different clouds and different versions of Juju. So no idea when this will happen, but it's something that we're interested in assessing out so that we have a better idea and we can provide better feedback to the users on what charms work, not only users but authors as well. What charms work on what releases and why they're failing. I think that's another topic that doesn't have much contention around it, but if you object to this newer level of testing, please, or if you have any additional feedback on that, please let us know. Cool. With that, kind of keep on moving down. The Launchpad Charmers group. We did grow. We grew 2 new Charmers. Adam and Edward again. Welcome, you guys both. A. Israel and Dosavoy, if I'm correct, right? On IRC. I don't think we have any inactive Charmers. Why are you pending? Approved you. Let me just get through the list real quickly, see what we got. Nope. Everyone on the list today has either responded unavailable to attend. No one's really inactive. Everything looks good here. So you're all Charmers. Again, for those of you who are wondering how do you become a Charmer, there's an application process. We're looking for people who are engaged in the Juju community, writing, reviewing charms, reviewing and modifying documentation. So while you may not be exactly the best coder in the world, we're looking for people who really understand the core tenets and concepts of what embodies quality in a charm, so that we can help mark you as a person, as someone that can be tapped on in the community to help guiding and mentoring other people writing charms, performing reviews to help maintain the quality of the curated charm store, and such. And as well, you get to join these awesome, cool hangouts and chat in general. Also, again, to be able to walk around with business cards that say you're a charmer, definitely an addition. It's got me out of a few squeaky situations. Let's see, what's the next? Cool, so it looks like we're down to scheduling the next Charmers meeting for the next month. I think instead of sitting here on air and polling everyone when the best time is, we should just shoot an email out. We'll figure out a time zone, potentially one that works better for our European and Asian Charmers, in addition to see if we can find a time span that works for most everyone again. So, Matt, I think I can task you with that. Cool. And the last item is open discussion. If anyone has any other issues they want to bring up, any points of conversation, any announcements they'd like to make, anything else you want to bring up for just general discussion in this Charmers meeting, now would be the time to do so.
I have something, actually. Charm helpers. We talked a while back about kind of splitting that up a bit. And I've hold my hand up, I hadn't thought about that at all, but it felt like something we should probably talk about here, in terms of when that might happen and who's going to be responsible for which bits. And
yeah, no, that's great.
So.
I have this epic long novelle of a email that I wrote that I have to like trim back down on what we should do about charm helpers. But just so everyone's aware, charm helpers is of course that Python library. It also has a programmable API hook where you can leverage it from Bash or other languages for specific functions that make sense to expose outside of just the Python charm helpers. But it is quite bloated is a problem that we've seen. It contains a lot of additional code. Maintaining and versioning it is very difficult. So we discussed, months ago now, we've been kind of in this ongoing discussion about how we can make charm helpers a really easy to use resources for charmers without delivering the bloats. So this includes packaging on PyPy, packaging as a Debian package, and then packaging anywhere else that we can deliver for this information. So the way we decided to do that is to trim everything out of contrib, and even some of the framework bits out of the charms themselves, the charm helpers. So the services framework, there's a couple of testing helpers in there as well. Those sort of things become their own packages, packaged and released in their own way. They just become a dependency on charm helpers, not necessarily embedded within it. I know, James, I think you guys have moved a lot of your OpenStack charm helpers already to its own project.
Not yet.
we discussed doing that. We had some performance and benchmarking stuff in there, but Adam has moved that out to its own, and now it just includes a dependency on charm helpers for the communication bits to Juju. For the most part, I think we are the developer experience team is kind of taking stewardship of charm helpers, very slowly taking stewardship of charm helpers. I suppose an email first to declare our intention, and then kind of tapping people who've been maintaining contrib modules to let them know that they're going to need to move out. And then from there, I think we could just start packaging the core of charm helpers separate from contrib as people move stuff out. So they'll remain in the repo, but during packaging time, they'll simply be excluded for the Debian stuff. That way we can start getting a real release process in place following a real semantic versioning schema, syncing those to PPAs or repos, wherever it makes sense from there. A timeline, we should probably start this beginning of next month, or July timeframe, to start the whole process of having people migrate their code out to their own packages. I know that involves a lot of churning and updating charms. For charms that have been embedding it using the charm helper sync, we'll want to make sure we maintain compatibility with that script as long as possible, so that we don't just rip out contrib and then suddenly someone runs a sync and everything kind of goes broken. So we'll have to find a way to kind of support that stuff for a little while until we get those charms updated.
Once it moves to a package, what's the process going to look like for using it in a charm?
So this goes back to our whole discoverability. We have a lot of people using Juju in an enterprise environment, which means just pip installing charm helpers is kind of a broken experience off the bat. So we'll definitely be pushing it into a PPA to start. So we'll just be packaging just the core charm helpers. So basically everything in charmhelpers.core sans the services framework stuff, which I think has already started moving to its own package. They did a rewrite, a services framework 2.0, which I think is now in its own Python package. So the plan is to deliver it as Debian.
When you go to use that in your charm, though, you kind of have a bootstrap problem. So you're depending on charm helpers. How do you get it installed? What's your idea for the process to install?
The way that people be getting around this is there's just a simple bash install hook that apt-get installs charm helpers and dependencies. There's been a lot of discussion about a build hook for Juju, which would be a hook that runs once at the beginning of the installation to get dependencies. There's also this idea of Juju resources, where you can declare resources that need to be pre-installed on a machine prior to Juju hooks running. There's a series of things that are going on in tangent with each other. For the time being, the way that we've done it for charms that install from PyPy is we just attempt to import, and if we can't, then we just invoke pip and we pip install inside of the exception for that import error. Something I assume could be done very similarly if you have Python apt as a module already, which I think comes as part of the cloud images.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you could just attempt to import charm helpers at the top of your, if you're doing the monolithic hooks files, attempt to import of charm helpers in the exception for import error, just simply import Python apt and then apt install from the PPA, or add the PPA and apt install from there. It's not the most cleanest solution. I'm curious if we could potentially get Juju to install it for us as part of the cloud image. I'm not sure how that would work out. I think we'd have to have it actually in in the archives, not just in a PPA, but we could, so we can start a discussion around that for sure, and figure out exactly how we want to handle that. But we do want to make it so that it is trivial if you're using a charm helper, whether it's the Python charm helpers or whether you're using charm helpers for any of the language, PowerShell or otherwise, that it's there for you. You don't have to do too much mess and fuss with it.
Yeah. It's a good move. I don't want to derail it or anything. I really like the move, and I hate doing that charm helper sync every month or ever often I do it. So.
No, we agree, and we'll.
I wish it was only monthly.
I don't envy your position. I'm sure you do it every day. It's awful.
We hate
it. Reviewing a lot easier as well.
We automated the testing of it because we hated it so much. So.
Oh man.
Anyway, but yeah, I agree. This is why I'm kind of pushing on this because I want to move away from it.
No, it's great. I will. I'll take an action to send out the email to just restate this intent, and then we can start the discussion there about how we handle versioning in archives, how we even get it in the archives, where we should start packaging the kind of timelines for that, and responsibilities around who has what, who's been contributing to the major contrib modules. Start the contacts there. But yeah, we should start to see if we can get some initial packaging stuff and versioning of charm helpers out towards the beginning of July. Would be great. Keep that momentum going. Cool. Excellent point. I don't think does anyone else have anything to add to that before we move on to any other subjects? Awesome. So I'll go back around again. Again, open forum. If anyone has anything else they'd like to bring up, thanks James for bringing up charm helpers. We'll make sure to cover that again. Review in the next month's Charmers meeting bits.
So Maki, you mentioned a version 2 of the services framework. Are there any charms being written on that new services framework to test it yet? And can we provide people with pointers so that they can see that work and maybe start consuming it and providing feedback? I think that would be a really valuable thing to do.
So I'm not the most up to date with the services framework. Unfortunately, all the guys that seem to work on the services framework, none of them seem to be charmers, so they're not here with us today. But I know. But I believe the latest big data charms, I'll have to double check. That's a great question. And if we do have a version 2 out, I'll prod them to send an email to the list to start highlighting the new features and stuff. But I'm fairly certain the latest versions of the Apache Hadoop charms are using this new Services Framework 2.0. They've been developing it as a part of working on their kind of big data collections of charms. So I will ping them after this and get them to follow up to the list with updates on that services framework, because it is quite an interesting thing and it seems to solve a lot of problems. And I know that they're going and taking it to the next level now and finding ways that they can simplify relation interactions and other pieces, not directly as part of services framework, but around that. Yes, this is a great article as well. Thanks for reminding me. I don't think this one covers Framework 2.0.
No, it's just version 1, but it does give you a flavor. So
yeah, no. Nick Moffat wrote an excellent article, which I'm including in the IRC rooms as well. I'll see if I can edit the video description. But if you just search on Insights, this was an article from April 15th of this year, 2015. He kind of includes a getting started guide around the services framework. It really helps illuminate exactly what the problem is trying to solve and how it went around solving that. And it's quite an interesting framework that once you kind of piece together what Juju's doing, it makes sense as a simplification for a lot of the event handling that's going on and streamlines that authorship. Thank you for the reminder, Edward. Great. Cool. So any other topics for discussion? All right, well, I suppose that about sums it up. Like I mentioned again, welcome to the new Charmers. You'll be followed up with an invite in the next week where we discuss the ins and outs and the policies around charmership, what it means to be a charmer, how reviews work, although I'm sure you guys have been already doing lots of reviews. And then how exactly it is you can now drive the vehicle that is Charmers with the access to the Charm Store, and how that whole piece is mitigated. Unless we have any other discussions, I think we'll close out this Charmers meeting. All right. So again, I want to thank Adam, David, Edward, James, Matt for joining us today. It's great to see you guys. We will have a follow-up Charmers meeting in about a month. Look for the Ubuntu On Air calendar. Look for emails as well. We'll be sending those out to the Juju list.
And don't forget the office hours later today. If you have some questions and you're in the Charmer community or the Juju community, please come to the office hours and ask us whatever you need.
Yes, thank you. It'll be again here on Ubuntu On Air in about 4 hours' time now. Great. With that, thank you, gentlemen, and we'll see you again soon.